So let's begin the Realty Plus e-conclave. Today we have some eminent leaders of the region deliberating on the current challenges, inherent potential, and the forecast for coming years for the southern cities of India. So the first session of the day is discussing Bengaluru's turning points, property trends to watch out. And let me introduce our eminent panel. The session will be chaired by Mayank Saksena, MD and CEO, Land Services Bengaluru, ANAROCK Property Consultants. An experienced industry veteran of high-ticket real estate transactions and acquisitions, Mayank Saksena has an expertise in land transactions and pan-India residential markets with robust industry relationship and developer-focused growth framework. He is responsible for building ANAROCK's residential vertical in South India and has a thorough understanding of various business models and market dynamics across the real estate domains. I welcome our moderator of the session. He is joining us in just a few minutes. Let me introduce our speakers in the meantime in an alphabetical order. I welcome Mr. Ashwinder R. Singh, CEO, Residential, Bhartiya Urban. He is also a best-selling author. Ashwinder is a real estate finance developer, funding and banking professional, and has helped several organizations achieve market commanding positions, including JLL Residential, ANAROCK Properties, where he served as a CEO for both India and UAE, and Bajaj Housing Finance Limited, where he was the group business head for the country, heading multiple mortgage businesses ranging from construction finance, inventory funding, and home loans. In his early years, he has served very senior executive roles in banking with Citibank, ICICI Bank, and Deutsche Bank. Let me introduce our next eminent speaker, Mr. Kishore Jain, Managing Director, Jain Heights. Mr. Jain is the brain behind the company and has been in the industry since 1994, having more than 25 years of business expertise in the field of real estate, construction, and development of residential, luxurious apartments, and commercial projects to his credit. He has been the immediate past president of CREDAI Bengaluru and is member of IGBC. Our next eminent panel member is Mr. P. Ravindra Pai, Managing Director, Century Real Estate Holdings Private Limited. Mr. Pai oversees all activities of Century Real Estate, including sourcing of land, project conceptualization, execution, and delivery. Different verticals like projects and engineering, design and architecture, construction, marketing, and communications, and customer service were established under him. He has also teamed up with IIM Bengaluru to acquire data and conduct scientific research on the Indian real estate sector. Our next and final member of this panel is Mr. Preetham Mehra, Senior Executive Director, Head Government Business, CBRE India. A seasoned strategy-oriented real estate professional of more than 30 years experience, Mr. Mehra has been advising decision makers and facilitating investment decisions. He specializes in systematic due diligence of opportunity and risk with a strong knowledge of business potential and market performance across asset classes. He has an in-depth understanding of real challenges in value creation and balanced approach towards long-term planning. So this is our eminent panel and our speakers of this panel. Mr. Saksena, I hand it over to you now. So let me take it in the meantime from what we just heard from Mr. Anand Malikawad. He was all praises for the real estate sector, that they are doing great in terms of environment and green projects. So let's hear it from the developers. Mr. Pai, what do you have to say? Bengaluru, we know it has been, facing water crisis in a big way. So how aware is developer community of all these environmental crises and how you are taking it up?
Hi, Sapna. Good chatting with you again. So I just joined in towards the end of Anand's talk. Anand is a legend in the kind of work that he does in Bangalore. I'm a follower of his on Twitter. With the great awe and admiration, I sort of follow what work he does. As a builder, I must admit that maybe our knowledge on environmental issues, sustainability may not be as deep as Anand's. But a couple of things that he mentioned, I think I would like to sort of reiterate that as builders, I think we are very, very keen to ensure that, all our communities have, sustainability inbuilt. We have, waste management, a lot of trees, a focus is given on a lot of sort of landscaping, trees. He also mentioned that there are maybe a few unscrupulous people who maybe bring a bad name to the industry, but by and large, I would like to say that as an industry, I don't think we consciously do anything which will harm the environment. Like I said, maybe we may not have as deep an understanding as Anand does, but I think it is definitely one of desires when we sort of conceptualize the project, that we ensure that all these things are taken care of. So that is something that we do. And like you also rightly mentioned, I think today the customers are a lot more aware or demanding, and many of them do come back and see what is the sort of amenities that are provided in each of these communities, be it an apartment, be it a gated complex and things like that. And from a saleability also, it's important. But having said that, I think I would like to, on behalf of most of the developers, I would like to say that we are we consciously don't do anything that violates any of these things. We're very, very keen to ensure that we are a party to ensuring that environment is sort of encouraged. Sustainability is there in all our projects. So it was really nice sort of hearing from Anand, because many a times the real estate realtors and the environmentalists seem to be on very, very different ends of the spectrum. So it's nice to really hear him talk in a very encouraging manner, and I think it gives all of us a lot of encouragement to ensure that we continue doing whatever work we're doing, and in a much better way.
Right. Real estate has always been on the receiving end. But Mr. Jain, what do you have to add? In fact, pandemic has also changed quite a lot. As Mr. Pai said, now the customers are demanding. They want all these green features, sustainable features, etc. So how are you seeing that? The demand changing from customers.
For a change, it was good to hear something good about the real estate. Always, as you were on the receiving end, and draw flag from every sector, every corner. And post-pandemic, the awareness on the well-being has increased across. In fact, the new millennials who are looking for the homes, they look for more green and open spaces, the larger balconies, sun-kissed apartment. This is what we were all looking at. And moreover, the becoming a sustainable development, I think it was the need. And moreover, also the developers are also very socially responsible and accountable. Because we also have to live in this city and this community and this planet only. We don't have a different planet to live. Okay? So that way we were very accountable and responsible towards our environmental responsibility. And more than demand, I think the developers are accountable towards the community, and that has driven them. I remember like rainwater harvesting we were doing from last 20 years in every project. STP, before government made it mandatory, the solid waste management, all our projects were having STP. And like this, but whatever has been done, it may not be enough. Much more is required to be done towards making it more sustainable. That's it.
That's fantastic. So developers are doing their bit, and their efforts are being recognized by a person like Anand Maligawat. So it says great things about the real estate sector. Mr. Saksena, I hand it over to you now to take forward the conversation.
Thank you, Sapna. And my apologies because of the technical glitch that I got delayed. So, and thank you all the eminent speakers to join. Preetham, I would request to know from your side that Bangalore market has been a super resilient market, and we have not seen the market really facing a lot of issues, while the other across the India we had seen a lot of tough times. What is your opinion, and what are the factors which are responsible that differentiate this city from the pan-India real estate scenario?
Anand, good morning and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you, Mayank, and great to connect with you as well as all the eminent speakers on the panel. And thank you, Reality Plus, for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this engaging discussion. In terms of your question, Mayank, I would like to look at 5 key factors that differentiates Bangalore from a lot of other cities in India. Of course, every city is now competing, and there's a healthy competition that is happening across various cities. And I would like to believe that the southern cities are slightly more progressive than some of the other counterparts in the rest of the country. But predominantly, I think Bangalore has 4 or 5 key advantages. One, as we all know, it is the city of millennials, right? And of course, with another 1 or 2 cities like Hyderabad and others, Gurgaon, for example, this has become the primary location where millennials and migrant workforce are choosing to make it their permanent places of residence. That's a big factor in my view. As you would all be aware, Bangalore attracts at least 100,000 IT professionals who are qualified, highly educated, to the city every year. And that's a huge number. And that, of course, puts a lot of pressure and responsibility on governments and developers and everybody involved. But also is a great opportunity because this level of employment and migration does not happen in every other city year after year after year. So that is one major factor in my view. The other major factor is the quality of employment. So one is the quantum of employment. The other factor is the quality of employment. As we all know, there are lots of cities in India who do a lot of KPO work, a lot of BPO work, etc. But the high quality tech jobs are still concentrated only in a few locations, and Bangalore is, the leader in that particular aspect. So I think that factor also adds to the attractiveness of the city. The third aspect, in my view, is the ecosystem on the real estate side. The number and the quality of developers who are there in Bangalore, who are from Bangalore, and who have built their portfolios over the last 2 to 3 decades in Bangalore. That I think is not something that we have seen in some of the other cities. Either a city has a smaller number of developers who have improportionately high share of the market, or there are cities where there are too many developers who are predominantly small or medium scale. There are very few cities where there are quite a few developers who are large enough, to command the kind of respect and attention that Bangalore does. That, in my view, is an important factor. The fourth factor, I think very unique to Bangalore again, is this is a city that is seeing all-round growth. As we all know, Bangalore is a circular city, and we see growth happening. We have seen growth happen predominantly in the eastern part of the city or the southeastern part of the city. But we are seeing much more activity happening in southern Bangalore, northern Bangalore, as well as western Bangalore. So I think this is one city, unlike other cities where development is predominantly concentrated either in one direction or in a particular corridor. Bangalore is a city where there are multiple regions that are growing simultaneously. And of course, the last factor I'd like to highlight is the connectivity. I think every city is now trying to be more connected. Bangalore, of course, we all know, has its own inherent challenges of road transport and traffic bottlenecks, etc. But if I zoom ahead and look at it 5 years, 7 years down the line, I think there's a lot of hard work going in today to make the city much more connected and much more accessible. And of course, metro is playing its role. The peripheral ring roads will play its role. The Bangalore-Mysore corridor will play its role. So I think there is a lot of effort going in today to make the city more connected. And particularly the metro has given life to a lot of corridors that were probably not on the radar 10 years back. You take Kanakpura Road, Sarjapur Road today is looking at a metro line. There is a line going from KR Puram all the way to the airport. So there are so many plans that are currently being executed where we'll see Bangalore really emerge as a very, very attractive destination than what it is today, 3 to 5 years down the line. That's it from me, Mayank. Softer aspects, of course, Bangalore has an enviable weather and of course a wonderful social infrastructure that all of us love, have always loved. But those are all softer aspects and on the lighter side.
Thank you, Preetham. Pretty well described, but actually, I think so. We all love the Bangalore weather, and probably one of the big drivers for everybody to be here. With that note, I would request Ashwinder. Ashwinder, you have been, probably lived in multiple cities in India, and now you are based out of Bangalore, and you've been in the real estate industry for many years now. Do you think that post-pandemic levels we are out of the, recessionary, periods of the bank, of the real estate sector, and can we comfortably say that now the worst times are behind us?
Thank you, Mayank. Glad to be on the panel. Great work, Tripti and Sapna, that you do. I'm envious of Dr. Batra. He has such a strong 2-member women-powered team that you keep on doing such fabulous events one after the other. Mayank, see, I'll share some data with you, and you're right. When we look at the pandemic, around 6,200 units were launched in the last quarter in Bangalore, which is quarter 3/21, which is a 2 times year-on-year basis growth and 71% growth on a quarter-on-quarter basis. YTD this year, around 12,700 units have been launched, which is a just hold on. Is my video off?
Yeah, actually, now it's better. It was off.
Okay. YTD, we have seen 12,700 units kind of being launched. So definitely the momentum is back. I think the first wave had a bigger damage on the residential sales than the second wave, because maybe people were more prepared, though the second wave was far more deadlier in terms of the havoc it created on people's life across all major metros. But I think people were far more prepared, and now people realize, this is something that we have been discussing again and again, that the value of a home has definitely come into picture. So the worst definitely seems to be over, because the first time buyer population seems to be kicking in now. Earlier, what was happening was, yes, there were upgrades. There were people who were, investing into multiple apartments. Residential was also, 5-6 years back seen as a investment tool, and now residential is being seen the way I feel it should be seen, is it is buying a home, and it is a mixture of a commercial decision as well as an emotional very big decision. So the first time buyer seems to be moving the needle right now, and this will continue to kind of move for the next I think the next decade seems to be very healthy and sustainable in terms of sales. Obviously, a lot of research needs to go in terms of what is the buyer looking at, what is the affordability the buyer is looking at, what kind of product design we need to come out with. See, what has happened is that the buyer today looks at a project and an apartment. We have seen that a 1,000 square feet apartment can give a look of a 1,500 square feet apartment, and a 1,500 square feet apartment can give a look of a 1,000 square feet apartment. So design is going to become a very important aspect. Having an extra room is becoming an important aspect. We at Niku Homes surprisingly are seeing more sales on 2+ study, 3+ study, 3 beds, lofts going in, and a slower sale on thankfully we did not have much of those apartments, but slower sale on smaller apartments. So people are looking at larger apartments, well-designed apartments. The demand is going to be sustainable, especially in Bangalore, because the employment generation in Bangalore is one of the finest in the country. With work from home coming in, we have to appreciate that the IT industry will continue to not get that much impacted, because you can always work from home. Some of the other industries like ours, I think you must be knowing where you work. You must be coming to work during pandemic also in office. So we can discuss that offline. But whether it is financial services, whether it is real estate, these are the businesses where you have to come to office. The touch and feel becomes very important. But Bangalore, because of the technology background, the IT employment is very well placed, and the home sales are going to be quite sustainable. And what my eminent speaker just spoke before me, the beauty is that the sales are across Bangalore, whether it is south, southeast, east, and north is now the new investment corridor that is coming up and is a very favored destination. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Ashwinder. Would love to discuss, offline with you that, how work from home, or probably work from hometown does not impact certain, set of, industries, and, does wonders for certain set of industries. But with that, Ravindra, you guys are one of the largest developers out of Bangalore, and Bangalore is a city which has been constantly producing great quality developers with extreme good amount of work and a resilience. What are the key reasons for that why Bangalore has these set of developers which other cities does not have, or other cities may envy also? And on that note, also I would like to understand that because work from home or work from hometown, probably the impact of that is maximum in Bangalore. So how do you see the developers in Bangalore, looking forward for developing the commercial office space, which has been a predominant office, real estate asset development in the city?
Thanks, Mayank. Sapna and Tripti have been kind enough to invite me to the real estate, the realty panel for several years now. So it's something that I cherish and really enjoy chatting with other eminent panelists over here. Uh, you're right, Mayank. Bangalore is known for the quality of developers. Like you mentioned, many of us have been in existence for several decades now. We as a group have been in existence we're in a 50th year. Many of the other large players are in their maybe third decade or fourth decade in existence. So I think real estate, as we know, is a cyclical business. So ups and downs are natural. Largely, these are determined by demand and supply. Typically, when the market is good, you see a large amount of supply that has been thrown into the market, and inevitably it leads to some sort of a crunch in demand. Also, when the demand is good, developers tend to increase prices, to benefit more or profit more, from the projects, and this inevitably leads to some sort of crunch in demand, and the market eventually sort of tapers down. I think what really stands instead for the Bangalore developers is that primarily most of us have been in existence for a long time, seen multiple cycles, and know how to sort of really tide through some of these cycles. That is one sort of a fundamental difference. The second, I think, is that also there's a sense of maturity and responsibility in Bangalore developers, and I'm not talking only for ourselves. I'm talking for the entire community, and it's something that in fact we all of us pride in. Kishore Ji is here. I think he can also vouch for the fact that I think it's a very, very sort of a close-knit community. All of us are not really competitors in that sense. We have very, very friendly discussions. As CREDAI, we in fact have information sharing, where we sort of disclose which are the projects that are coming up in a near vicinity. So all of us can plan in terms of which what products are coming in the market, and hence do we really flood the market, or do we sort of hold back till the supply sort of is absorbed. So I think there's a lot of maturity that developers bring to the table. Also, it's not an investment-oriented market where we are sort of really selling it to a channel partner and then expecting them to downsell. It's not that you say 100 units, tum le lo, you sell it and I'm out of the project. I think these are sort of trends we've seen in other parts of the country which have not really put real estate in a good light. So some of these practices that we follow, I think given the professionalism, and I think also we need to really thank our customers in that sense. Given that we are in the IT hub, our customers also demanding, and many times they push us for higher quality of service or higher sort of transparency and governance. And I think we have also benefited from many of these aspects. And hence, I think like I mentioned, the maturity or the responsibility of the developers in Bangalore is immense. We are fortunate that many of us have a good asset backing. We have a strong balance sheet. So even in times of such as the pandemic, we've been able to tide over many of these things. But I think the fundamental thing, Mayank, is that I think we are in a business of trust. Customers really are expecting developers, to deliver on a timely basis, to a good quality, and deliver what they're committing. And I think that is something that Bangalore developers are doing extremely well. And of course, there are here and there will be niggles with our customers, but I think to a large part of it, and most of the developers, I would say that trust is something that we all value, and we sort of ensure that we deliver on what we promise. So that's the first part of the question. The second aspect that you talked about was, this whole work from home culture that is sort of emanated. I think, I think nobody needs to hear more about the pandemic. I think we all rather have this behind us and look forward. But having said that, I think one fundamental difference that has emerged, and I think is here to stay, is the hybrid model of working. I don't think the question typically is, will work from home stay or not stay? I think what I really feel is that there'll be a middle path that will emerge. There will be a hybrid model wherein people are expected to go to office maybe 2 or 3 times a week. A large part of the time, you will, sort of work from home. In a city like Bangalore, where traffic, is very, very sort of infamous for our traffic. The travel times, I think work from home is a big benefit. So I think what the pandemic has really done is that it has taught us to live, earn, learn, play in in very, very different manners. And I think this is something that is here to stay. And I think most of developers are responding to this in various formats. And there are of course the softer angles that Preetham did mention, that we are fortunate enough to have a great weather. Very, very cosmopolitan sort of a crowd, very, very inviting local population. So many, many things that are going for Bangalore. And I think Ashwinder also threw in a lot of numbers to sort of substantiate. And from talking to many of my friends in the industry or in the banking sector, everybody believes that, the next 6 to 7 years is going to be a very, very secular bull run for real estate. So it's a very, very positive time, I think, that we all are operating. And I'm very, very hopeful that, I mean, last 10 years, all of us have experienced a very, very flat market. I think the next 6 to 10 years is really going to be the time for real estate in that sense.
Thank you, Ravi, and thank you for all the good words. I definitely hope that, for next 6 to 10 years, we'll have a great run. But with that, Kishore ji, what I would request, because you're the senior most, person on the panel, and you have a 25 years experience in the real estate sector. It will be great to understand from you that how has been the journey for last 25 years. I don't know if techies were there 25 years back in Bangalore, and real estate was so organized and it was so changing and so demanding. And how is it now, and how they are demanding from you people in terms of the residential requirements, or discipline or quality of construction. So Kishore ji, over to you.
Thank you, Mayank, Sapna, and Tripti, for inviting us for this empaneled, eminent panelist for the engagement. Thank you so much. And 25, 30 years of journey into the real estate. In fact, there is a plethora of changes which happened in last 2 to 3 decades. I'll tell you a scene one, like how earlier the few of our senior developer used to do business. They used to meet customer in the ambassador car for a sale closure, and there used to be a bar in the bonnet. This is how the karobar was done. We used to call it as karobar. And fast forward now, the person sitting in probably the California just see the project over online, transfer money online, and done deal. Okay. Hardly any interference, human interference. This is the kind of 180-degree change we could see in the real estate sector. So right from the construction, the technology term was completely missing in the real estate on those days, like starting with construction and its process. Construction was at a very, very primitive stage. Even the scaffolding part, even those parts were like, we used to consume those Casadena poles instead of those MS scaffolding also. And there weren't any process driven. It was more driven by the owner rather than site engineer or architect or any consultant, etc. This is how the journey began. And in terms of sales, the sales meeting used to happen over a luncheon meeting, and the sales cycle used to be 3 to 6 months time for one sale closer. First part is to educate the customer why apartment and community living is good, what are the risks, and so that way the market has to be evolved. And the CRM department was never existed. So it was more on a everything like all-in-one practices. This is what used to happen. And marketing, it was purely by word of mouth, or a maximum used to do a classified ad on the print media. And legalities, nobody used to check. It's more on the trust and the credibility and the word of mouth of the developer. And so is with the agreements also. Like people doesn't understand what was the agreement. So those were the time, and this 4 or 5 decades that we could see there was a sea change in complete real estate market is really evolved, and today the technology has become entered into the every aspect of the real estate process. And more happy for the current real estate status and the development which has happened in terms of volumes and in terms of the quality of development. And I endorse what Ravindra has said. The developer, particularly in Bangalore, in fact, we take pride in the breed of developer from the Bangalore city. In fact, last year, before pandemic, Times of India did a survey. You are the top 10 developers in the country in terms of best business practices. Very proud to say 5 of them were from Bangalore city. So it's more of a community living, no competition, no cutthroat competition, or no rivalry, anything as such. More of a collaborative approach. So coming to the current real estate, the way of doing business, of course, with RERA and being there, which is become more regulated. Earlier, we were completely unregulated. No one was there to ask. And then gradually the bankers came, the home loan businesses started, and the bankers has become our regulator, like in absence of regulator. They were demanding whether it's a panchayati approval or a BBMP approval. So that kind of distinction they used to do. They used to do legal check. And before home loan, nobody was there to check on the legal aspect of it also. So that way it has evolved, and ultimately the customer has benefited, and eventually the developer has also benefited. Whenever customer is more educated, more aware, and more informative, always the benefit will goes to the real estate. Today, I'm very happy to see real estate is very regulated, completely transparency is there. Developers have become more matured, more disciplined, and with regulation being there already it's 4 years. And we have seen historically any sector which is regulated, be it a stock market, be it a telecom sector, be it insurance sector, that sector has grown disproportionately. So I am quite confident next decade, Bangalore as specific and Indian real estate will grow leaps and bounds. Yeah, thank you.
Hope so, Kishore. Thank you for helping us understand what the real estate market was 25 years back, and the interesting concept of karobar. With that, Preetham, interestingly, if you look at in Bangalore now, the government also has started adopting a digital dashboard for monitoring the key infrastructure projects. And infrastructure has always remained a problem in Bangalore. At least I have been seeing from 2000 onwards. What are your views on this new initiative? And do you think that this will help, ensuring that the projects get delivered on time, or we still are going to have bouncy roads in Bangalore?
So we should ask this question to the government, Mayank, honestly speaking, but I'll share my views on it. See, the digital dashboard is, of course, not unique to Bangalore alone. And of course, every smart city in the country is following this particular process. And this is being guided by the Central Department on Housing and Urban Development. So I think almost all smart cities will have a central digital dashboard. But what these dashboards do, apart from tracking and monitoring and reducing the project life cycle, and of course cutting pilferage and trying to complete the project on time without too much cost over and etc. etc. I think a lot of these benefits are very obvious, right? So if you're able to have something that you can constantly view, there is of course going to be better performance, and that's what all of us are hoping for, right? But more importantly, in my view, Mayank, and I think the spirit of doing something like this is essentially to build trust between government and the population, right? So what this is likely to do is to bring in transparency. So the average citizen in Bangalore or any other smart city in India will have access and availability of information across the various facets that impact him or her, and they will be able to monitor the progress of these projects at their level. So apart from the government agencies and the departments that are spending money to do this infrastructure, what these digital dashboards essentially will aim at is to bring in more transparency across the board, and in turn build the trust between government and their citizens, right? And that's a happy situation that every state, every city is trying to look at, and that is real progress if you ask me. And that's where India should move towards in the next 5 to 10 years. So the whole millennial population that we talk about, they are not apologetic to ask all the tough questions, and because some of these answers will be available to them digitally without having to ask those questions, I think they will be a happier lot, and they will also contribute to nation building by giving suggestions at the right time.
Thank you, Preetham. Quite an insight. But actually, I hope with all these initiatives, Bangalore infrastructure problem, becomes more, a lesser of an issue, and the traffic probably which haunts everyone, becomes, again, a lesser of an issue. But with that, I would like to request Ashwinder to throw his views. Ashwinder, the contrarian view on real estate's, sudden boom and the growth has been that the interest rates for housing has been extremely cheap. So, it's the low cost money which is available, which is driving, the industry. So A, do you think, is it true or it is not? And B, if that's the story, then the sudden increase in the home loan interest rate by SBI, is it like that the announcement of the party is over now?
No, it's a very good question, Mayank. See, mortgage or home loan is a 20-year loan, and an average time that a consumer keeps a home loan is around 8 to 9 years. What the home loan rate regime in the last 2 years has done is that it has kind of built a very positive sentiment that, you know, home loans have become far more affordable, your EMIs have gone down. However, I don't think there is a material difference that comes in the EMI. Yes, there is a material difference that there is a little difference that comes in a EMI, but because it's a 20, 25-year-old loan, you know, your EMIs don't change. You know, they would not be as elastic, and they will change between 500 rupees, 400 rupees, 600 rupees, maximum 700-800 rupees. So on an affordable segment, it works. But not that much. But what it does is it creates a positive sentiment, and that sentiment creates momentum. Real estate is a game of momentum, and everybody starts taking decision looking at the other people. So when they start looking at their own micro markets, their own friends, families, people start buying, people start saying home loans have become cheaper. You know, it builds a beautiful momentum around it. SBI has increased the rate, but it has increased the benchmark rate by 10 basis points. It is also because we have to understand that most of the home loan lenders are actually working on a very, very thin, wafer thin margin right now. The most profit that a HFC or a home loan company makes is from other lending products like construction finance, inventory funding, you know, even LRD has become far more profitable, because the salaried home loan, the margins that a HFC or a home loan company makes is only 10 to 20 bips. And it was not becoming, making business sense. And that is why an SBI was the cheapest. We also have to understand that SBI was at 6.5. The rest were at 6.7, 6.8, going up to 7. So SBI, by increasing 10 bips, I don't think that the home loan regime will change immediately. It is going to be there for the next 1 odd year, because the current monetary policy also that happened right now, you know, RBI has kept the home loan rates and the interest rates, repo rate at 3.9 and the reverse repo at 4. So the rates are not going to change much for the next 10 years, 10 to 12 months. Unless and until inflation really goes up, and that pushes them to increase the benchmark rate, which will happen in the credit policy or the monetary policy. The other impact that, you know, it is a couple impact that has happened. One is the home loan rates have been at all-time low. And because of the pandemic, the average household saving in the last 2 years has gone up by 7,000 to 8,000 rupees per month. That has had a dominoes effect, and that has made the home loan buying a decision where families have said, okay, I save around, you know, 5,000-6,000 rupees on the EMI. I say my savings have increased. Okay, let me now take a home loan and, you know, move from a rental apartment to an owned apartment. So a lot of shift from the rental side to an owned apartment has happened because of that. The point you are making is important. When will the rate of interest come up? From a benchmark standpoint, from the RBI is still to be kind of guessed. They are trying to see that, you know, they don't increase the rates. I don't think for the next 12 months, the rates will increase. But once they start increasing, there will be a minimal effect. But as I said, the end user will keep on propelling the market, and it will not have a dampening effect on the sales. That's my personal opinion.
Great, Ashwinder. And I hope that, you know, that doesn't impact the industry negatively. But with that also, the very other important factor, you know, in our industry is the supply. And on that, frankly, Ravi, I would request your views that Bangalore has current 25 months, you know, overhang on the supply side, which is basically lowest among the top 7 cities. But with that, and with the, you know, huge bump up in the sales velocity and the growth, how do you see that the new fresh supply which is going to get added to the city, will it start impacting, you know, the real estate market again negatively in Bangalore? Or do you think that, you know, the market is got quite a lot of strength right now to, you know, consume all the supply and still be resilient and, you know, still continue to grow?
Well, Mayank, I mean, like I mentioned a little earlier, I think, supply demand sort of goes together, you know, I mean, and we've seen in the last maybe 2 years, post the pandemic, sales have been extremely good for most developers. One of the things that I want to really point out is that, and Ashwinder, I think, mentioned this number, is that roughly about 60,000 units is getting sold in Bangalore. But that number has not changed for many years now. So while some of the developers are doing well, I think what has really happened is that thanks to the regulations, thanks to, I think real estate is one industry that has got affected the most over the last 4 years, be it the RERA, be it GST, be it demonetization. As an industry, there have been significant sort of inflection points that have taken place in the last 4-5 years. And while the market itself has not expanded, what we have seen is that players who have the ability, the strength, who have managed to survive, their share of the pie has really grown, expanded. So I think that is, one thing that we need to keep in mind in that sense. So the supply itself has been it's been constant really. There's not been too much of oversupply, while most developers have been doing well. Again, having said that, new launches is a factor of demand itself. Now given that, I spoke about it a little bit earlier also, as demand grows up, we'll see many players wanting to come into the market with newer and newer products. Now, given that there is regulations, it's not that easy. The entry barriers are much higher for anybody to just come in and launch a project. In the past, anybody with a piece of land became a developer. I think all of us here have, multiple instances where we have seen, people who have come in and exited the market maybe even quicker. But I think that is not the case now. Today you need to have a serious commitment to the business, because there are a whole lot of compliances that need to be taken care of. There are costs involved. With regards to these compliances, timelines are very critical. You need to get a sanction before you can market it or launch. It can't be that you just, even before you sort of tie up the land, you're out there selling it. I think that whole lot of confusion is out of the market, so it's not going to be easy for any new player to really just come there and, launch the project. But having said that, the market's doing well. We will definitely see new launches from the existing players. But I think also today, there's a lot more science in the sense what people are launching. And I think most of the panelists here did speak about, doing some sort of a market research, understanding what the product is, trying to sort of really understand where the market need is, because overhang largely comes because, in the past, what would happen is that, if one developer put up, 4,000 square feet apartment, the other fellow wanted to come and put up a 5,000 square feet apartment over there, without really understanding what the need of the market was. I think today we are a lot more smarter in that sense. And I think we are, all of us, I think once bitten, twice shy. Nobody wants to really, make such mistakes again. So I think most of us now do a clear demand assessment, see what products are selling, what the market is asking for. So and hence, we are seeing that the overhang has come down. And even if new launches come, and I mentioned this, we all hope that we're in the midst of a start of a bull run at least. And I hope the new launches come and the market is sort of robust in that sense, and all the players continue to do well.
Great, Ravi. Kishore, on that note, northern Bangalore has been, the focus area for the city for quite some time now. What are your views that, how does, say, the airport, plan on the northern Bangalore impacted this, focus? And then does this really infrastructure projects help? And, what are the infrastructure projects are going to come into Bangalore and which are going to help the other parts of the Bangalore also to boost?
See, globally, the biggest infrastructure to any city is the airport. And global trend is wherever the infrastructure is there, the habitation will start moving towards the belt. So Bangalore, the largest infrastructure is airport, and with T2 getting started and with the capacity being addition, it's very natural to have development over there. So what are the developments? So for anybody to have habitation, I think the first thing is the economic activity. In terms of economic activity, one of the most ambitious projects of the government of Karnataka is the IT investment region, which comprises of around 12,000 acres of land parcel. Like that kind of development, they have a blueprint which they are planning to execute. So that is going to be the largest driver for the economic activity. And along with this are the smaller projects which have already kick-started, like around 900 acres of your aerospace SEZ. And there are other things, other parks like Nano Park is getting started. In Bangalore area already, the financial district KIDB development has already started. These are all leading to economic activity. And the private, like already Manita is there in Apple, Kirloskar Business Park, and like already 40 to 50 million square feet are at various stages of development in terms of commercial offices. And along with the economic activity in terms of residential and other infrastructure, residential development, if you see interestingly in the airport region, predominantly the left side of the airport road, we have a horizontal development, villa, plotted development, and more of a horizontal development. And on the right-hand side, it's all about the vertical development. This is a very interesting mix. And with adding up the residential, the more social infrastructure in terms of mall, Phoenix is coming up over there. In terms of hospitality, Oberoi, Taj is already there. Oberoi is planning, ITC is planning for the larger development. Schools are there, world-class schools, colleges, hospitals, everything is there in the northern Bangalore. And the area which is getting benefitized because of infrastructure and the social infrastructure, and the third most important is the connectivity. So already the metro line is in place, the work has started. Government talking of high-speed rail interlinking, that will be adding up. And the Ballari road, the airport road, I think existing 6 lane is getting widened to 8 lane. So those all connectivity issue getting resolved, and all the physical as well as the social infrastructure are being placed. It's but natural that market is bound to grow. And the micro market which are going to benefitize because of those available infrastructure will be, one is the Yelika. And on the right hand side will be those Jakkur, Tanisandra, Henno Road, Nagavara. Those are all like already we could see the kind of residential development activity are being there. These are the areas which will be developed in the northern part. I think everybody is moving towards north.
Thank you, Kishore. But very interestingly, you described how the left side of the highway and the right hand side of the highway has been developing. One is like a flatted, more of a group housing of a villa development, and on the other side we have high rise. But with that, Preetham, I would request to understand from your side. Let's see, Bangalore has been mainly an ITS city, and this particular economy has been the least impacted, in the COVID times, and probably our stock market speaks very highly about all the ITS firms right now. How do you see that will help us jumpstart, going forward for the city? And now, as hopefully, the COVID impact, day by day going down, do you see really Bangalore benefiting now again from that?
Yeah, thanks for asking how, Mayank, and not when. I think the question when is beyond us, hopefully. See, I see again 2 or 3 very, very key factors that will give Bangalore the head start, post the pandemic, particularly on the commercial office sector side, right? One, I already mentioned, Bangalore is a preferred city for millennials, and a lot of them have made this their first home, right? So, if you look at people who are from the hinterland of India, and if you go to college campuses to hire, fresh graduates, etc., and if you ask them their preferred location for employment, Bangalore ranks amongst, the top one, definitely, in a lot of cases. So, because this has become the primary city of choice, a lot of talent already resides in Bangalore. So, in other cities during the pandemic, while a lot of workforce went back home to their tier 2, tier 3 locations, and are not necessarily coming back very soon, in Bangalore, the advantage will be that a lot of this workforce is already residing here. So to kind of bring them back to office, the city will already have a head start because a major part of their workforce is already there. That, in my view, is one. The second, of course, is the whole startup ecosystem, right? India has been at the forefront of ecosystem, and today there are more than one unicorns that are emerging out of India, right, every week. And because Bangalore is a hotbed for the startup world, I think that also will be a major attraction for talent and employment. See, ultimately, as all of us know, IT industry, and hence the commercial real estate office market is heavily dependent on talent and quality of talent. And because Bangalore has abundance of this, both in terms of people already residing there, as well as the startup ecosystem attracting the best from across the globe, I think Bangalore will have a phenomenal head start in terms of getting things back in order.
Great, Preetham. On that note, Ashwinder, you guys are based out of Bangalore, and from a technology perspective, Bangalore is the Silicon Valley for, at least this part of the world. What kind of technology adoption you guys are doing in your business?
Sure, I'm glad and I'm very happy to share that Bhartiya City was one of the first which kind of came on Thanisandra Road 15, 18 years back, and it is today a landmark as far as development in North Bangalore is concerned. We are either developed or underdeveloped development between 18 to 20 million square feet, multi-asset. So technology has been an important part. I will try and focus on the newer technologies, Mayank, because on the construction side, yes, we have MyOne, Precast. We use a Microsoft project, which most of the other developers do, and there are, regular enhancements that keep on happening. But we being an integrated township, there is a lot of IoT that is happening, because now we have the Leela Bhartiya City Hotel that has come up. The mall of Bengaluru has come up. We have around 2,500 residents staying in Niku Home. So we are trying to gather a lot of data in terms of buying behavior, spend behavior, how many of our existing residents go and use the hotel, go to the mall, what kind of spending power they have, what are their likes, what are their dislikes. Because what is happening is that the future is on the IoT, that you need to know the on the go behavior that a consumer is trying to provide. So obviously Bhartiya City is a smart city. So, we have an in-house intelligent community management system, which is there, which is managing around 3 million square feet of office space. Managing all our residential projects. We keep on understanding what kind of spends they are doing in terms of not just basic spends of electricity, etc., but grocery, because everything is connected now. Eating from outside, what kind of food they like, because we are also focusing on bringing those kind of restaurants and retailers, what kind of fashion brands people like. So a lot of work on the IoT is happening. Obviously, we are on SAP. So we've been on SAP for the last 2 years now. So end to end, starting from pre-sales to post-sales, from the walk-in till the final registration is done. Everything is connected on ERP. A lot of work has reality is already there, which most of the people do for site visits. But over and above, a lot of stuff on the digital side, a lot of focus on performance marketing, analyzing the last 7-8 years of data. If people bought, say 5,000 people bought in Bhartiya City Niku Homes, where are they coming from, how many are from north, how many are from south, how many are from east, and then kind of having a regular communication based on some algorithms that we are trying to do. So a lot of technology focus right now, and our company Intelligent Community Management, ICM, that we call, is already now 5 years old, and we are benefiting a lot from that. And it also not only just reduces cost, but it also makes a lot of way to improve your operating margins, especially when the input costs of steel, cement, etc. have gone up by 40-50% in the last couple of years, but the sales price has not gone up. So there needs to be a lot of innovation that is required, because the buyer is still not ready to pay on a cost plus basis. So a lot of stuff happening on this area, Mayank.
Thank you, Ashwinder, for that insight. On that note, Ravi, what are your views? Because it's not just the buyers are not willing to pay the extra buck. It's also on the commercial side that people are finding more new and efficient way of reducing the cost of occupancy. And one of that reason was the key reason that had helped a new asset class to come into picture, which was the co-working space. So how do you see the future of co-working space? And, how do you see that, will this continue to become a predominant asset class going forward? And also, do you see that, post pandemic, this will become relevant, or what are your views on the co-working space future?
So Mayank, co-working, I don't think is a new concept. I mean, we've seen business centers as Regus and all exist. I think thanks to Adam Newman, this has got repackaged and rebranded as co-working spaces. But having said that, I think co-working is here to stay, primarily because many companies today are not viewing real estate as its core business. I mean, whoever is occupying space is just another sort of a resource. It's not really something. I mean, you don't need to really own or manage your real estate in that sense. I mean. So whoever feels that real estate is not core, they rather look for some facility or some facility provider to manage the real estate. And this can be called either a co-working, or it can be called managed offices, or whatever it is. Also, I think the way businesses are working today, it's become extremely dynamic. There's no more a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. Today you need to really worry about the next 6 months or the next 1 year. In such a scenario, it's very hard to sort of really plan your space requirement as well. So to commit to sort of larger spaces, get locked into sort of multi-year leases, businesses may be a little hesitant at this point of time, and the flexibility that somebody like a co-working or a managed working offers can be very, very attractive. Especially in a city like Bangalore, where it is largely a startup culture. I think Preetham spoke about it. I think these are small businesses. They're really looking, they're not really looking to set up a large space. They're not really worried at this point of time whether, the coffee machine is working, or, is the, photocopy machine working. So they just want a small space where they can sort of really start working. So I think these will be large consumers of co-working spaces. The larger occupiers will maybe look at more sort of managed spaces where there's some amount of flexibility in how they can use the space going forward, and react very, very quickly and be a little bit more nimble. The other big point that I feel that's going in favor of co-working spaces is really this whole, the millennial workforce. So they don't want to come into this sort of a boring and dreaded office space. I mean, today everything is about community. Even if we are working in a gym today, everybody wants to be a part of a community. It's not just about going to a gym, working and coming, but it's also about being in that, WhatsApp group, interacting, talking about your diets, talking about your workout. So it's all become community, and I think that is also spilling into the workspace. So to attract talent, many companies, I think, will also need to offer millennials the flexibility or the community sort of belonging that these co-working spaces sort of offer. And this will also be a large part of the talent acquisition strategy for many companies. I mean, it will really be, how do I differentiate one company from another? It's going to be really be my workspace, my community, maybe the after hours, after, work. So I think this whole, the work and play is also merging in that sense. I think some of these things, the co-working spaces have really responded to this requirement. And I think, from a traditional, business centers is moved to co-working spaces and managed spaces. And it will possibly evolve, but it's definitely here to stay, in my view.
Thank you, Ravi, on that. With that, probably I would like to ask my last question to Kishore Ji. Is that, Kishore Ji, we have been seeing, sustainable development demand, across country for quite some time. And in Bangalore, especially when you see lakes getting destroyed, development regulations getting tougher and tougher. There's so much of, at least effort to see and ensure that the sustainable development becomes part of the whole city development. And the city has been developing like crazy. What are your views that what more needs to be done? And from a government side, how can we ensure that sustainable development happens for the city, that the city remains to be a garden city of, India?
I think after listening to Mr. Anand as our keynote address, the need for sustainability no need to be repeated. Like, it is already everybody is felt, and we all understand we are custodian of this planet, which we have to pass it on to the future generation. And the kind of disruption which humankind has done, and one of the impact we could see during the pandemic. I think this is the right time which we have never felt more responsible towards our environment and towards the sustainable development. I think one agency which has relentlessly worked towards sustainable development and to promote green building is the IGBC. I think with their effort, with their rating system and awareness and education among the developers, I guess today around 7.5 million square feet of green sustainable development already. It has been cleared. This is good, but it's not enough. And most of the development, green building development has happened in commercial space. Residential is still missing. There are various reasons why the residential development is not adapting the greener building and what exactly is the challenges. I think major among the challenges which residential building will face is in terms of the costing. And the market has become very, very price competitive. Unless a developer is being incentivized, there are only two ways to do it. Either you incentivize the developer, otherwise you make it as a mandatory. Then only the green building concept can be promoted. I think the major thing which government can do rather than being mandatory is to incentivize. Although few of the things which are required, which we discussed initially also, like rainwater harvesting, sewage treatment plant, solid waste segregation, those all are being done. But this is not enough. We need to be, like recently held at COP, Conference of Party 26 at Glasgow. I think India is committed, 2070 it has to be carbon zero. And 2/3 of the world is committed by 2050. If we have to achieve carbon zero, net emission zero by 2050 to 2070, we don't have much choice. We have to adopt this greener building. Few of the state governments across, I could see, Punjab, Gujarat, Haryana, they are doing at their level to incentivize the developer to make building by increasing either FAR around 5% or 0.25 of FAR, they will give additional FAR for those green buildings. Some of the states of Rajasthan also, I believe they give like subsidies also. And somewhere the development fees will be reduced. So those are the incentives are at state level. But what I strongly feel, this is not enough. It's a very eager like to really incentivize the developer. Maybe it's central government, like how central government is incentivizing the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Something similarly they have to do for the greener building also. In terms of reduction in GST, maybe registration fees also can be reduced. And of course, the state government by adapting at least 0.5 to 1 FAR, additional FAR, so that the cost increase can be mitigated and eventually it won't affect to the end user. So that way we can make it in a very, very sustainable manner. Coming to lakes, open spaces, park, etc. I think the CDP, the Comprehensive Development Plan, the new CDP which Bengaluru is planning, the more emphasis is more on the greener building, clear Raja Kaluve, that nalas, clear demarcation of nalas and lake. Those are being done. I think at urban planning stage, if the policies are clear, there is no blurred vision as such, clear demarcation, that is going to help towards a sustainable development.
Yeah. So I hope the industry coming back, the development also is sustainable, so that at least we leave a nicer and a better world for our kids, going forward. On that note, thank you, all the panelists for sharing your views. It was quite enlightening and learning. And also, thank you, Sapna and Tripti, for hosting such a beautiful event. With that, I would request that if anybody has any questions to the panelists, then probably they can raise now, or they can write to us, on a separate email, and Sapna can share it with us.
Yes,
thank you.
Definitely. We have lots of questions, in fact, and we'll have to take them offline. But thank you so much for giving us that perspective about the Bengaluru real estate. And as Mr. Kishore Jain mentioned, from starting from Karobar and now where it is happening online with people sitting in California, and Mr. Pai sharing his views on how sustainability is now a big thing with all the developers across the state and the city especially. And Ashwinder ji, thank you for sharing that views about how customers now are becoming the drivers of what we are seeing now, the technological advancements in the sector. And Mr. Mehra sharing your perspective about what more government can do. And thanks Mr. Saksena for so wonderfully moderating this session and bringing the best views from our speakers, the eminent speakers. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your time and views. Thank you so much.